Smart homes are getting more and more complicated, and trying to get devices that work well together is a bit of a minefield. This one supports Alexa, this one is Apple Home, this one is Google Assistant or Alexa only, this one doesn't support anything and uses its own app. But I've come across a way to solve this problem with 10 underrated smart home gadgets that have had a genuine impact on my quality of life. So today I want to show you what they are, how they work, how they solve the challenge of everything working differently, and also how they all get the wife approval seal. The first one has been such a good purchase that we now have 2 of them, one for upstairs, one for downstairs. Now this robot vacuum cleaner has hugely outperformed and outlived even the most expensive Dysons that we've used over the years, but with the added benefit that you don't even need to be there when it's cleaning. This thing uses the built-in cameras and tons of sensors to literally map each room and floor of your house so that it can navigate around it effortlessly. Now those same cameras and sensors also mean you don't actually have to worry about leaving things on the floor when this is going, because this vacuum avoids these and will actually snap photos for you to respond to inside the app as to whether it's a temporary obstacle or something more permanent you want to avoid in the future. Now once it learns your house, you can even tell it to go and clean specific rooms or avoid certain areas. Now the only drawback I found here is that you do still need a handheld for the inevitable mess of kids and crumbs on the sofa or cat hair left on cushions. Now in other things that save you time, this is the outside equivalent of the robot vacuum. Now it's not as intelligent though, it doesn't learn or map your garden out, but instead you lay a wire along the boundaries of your garden and the robo lawnmower will drive in a straight line until it reaches the wire. Then it will just turn around and goes in a straight line and again, cutting your lawn in just random directions until it gets an overall even cut. Now this is supposed to be great for your lawn because rather than collecting the grass cuttings, it feeds it back into the lawn. But we have just come out of winter here in the UK, and just before winter, I decided to try do some moss treatment on the grass myself, and well, yeah, I basically just kill the grass anyway. So yeah, excuse how awful the grass does look. Perhaps they could invent one that does all the grass treatments for you as well. That aside, this thing just sits here most days in its charging station and then goes out for a few hours a day just to keep everything level. The only thing I've had to do here is lay the wire around the edge and remember to bring the mower in if the temperature drops below 0 degrees over winter. But otherwise, it's been yet another hassle-free smart home product that saves me yet another job every single week. Plus, if you hold out, these things can normally be found discounted on Amazon or even on Amazon Marketplace. The next smart tech is actually a combination. Now, it's been a few years now since I carried around any form of keys with me. My car uses my phone, so I don't need a car key. For my garage, I fitted a pretty cheap garage door opener, which is actually HomeKit compatible. And this wires into any traditional garage door system. And I can access this from my Android phone, but more on how that works in just a moment. So I don't need to carry around car keys or a garage door clicker. But for my front door, the UK has some pretty strict regulation, which means most smart locks aren't possible. But one that is the Yale smart lock, which either uses your phone via Bluetooth or these NFC tags, which are kind of like you would get for your alarm or to go to the offices at work. You can also create and send guest keys to people if for some reason you need someone else to be able to get into your house, maybe a cleaner or a family friend or something like that. But with a combination of these 3, the car, the garage door, and the front door, I no longer carry around a set of keys with me. I literally just carry around a phone which can do everything. It does mean that if my phone dies, then I have a problem, but I am currently using the S23 Ultra, which is an absolute king at battery life, and it lasts about, I think it's 2 days. So as long as I charge this every single day, then there's little to, well, pretty much zero chance I'm gonna run out of battery by the end of each day. Now the next one is an energy saving one, and that's with one of these. And now I have a few different kind of makes and models of these around the house, but these smart plugs allow me to both monitor and control devices across the home. For example, my home theater system actually uses a ton of electricity, even when just in standby. So just using one of these, I can make sure that it's switched off at the plug when it's not in use. I also use these to switch off devices around the house when nobody's at home to save even more energy. And I can use them to monitor to see which devices are the biggest consumers as we try and reduce our carbon footprint and reduce our overall energy costs at a time when energy and inflation is at a hugely all-time high. The next one to go through is another money-saving one here, heating. Now I compared a couple of different heating systems last year, but if you haven't seen that, then a smart heating system is an absolute must-have. So most houses here in the UK at least are built with a single central thermostat control that's typically in the hallway, and then your whole house heats up until that hall area hits whatever temperature that you've set. But with a smart heating system, I can control the temperature in each separate room of my house, which means I can be more efficient with moving the heat around. Now, if you don't use a room for a few hours a day, then there's no reason to heat that room for the few hours a day. Or overnight, for example, you can just heat the bedrooms. You can even use the predictive weather to control what your boiler does, so there's no need for the boiler to warm your house up if the sun's going to do the same thing, just a few moments later. So using smart tech can save you money on your heating bills. Now this system also detects when we leave the house to switch the system off, and then detects when we're getting closer to the house, so it starts warming it up again, so the house is at the right temperature when we get home. It's one of those systems that you buy and set and then forget because it just does what it's meant to do, but it's still one of the first things I would do when moving into any new house. The next one is a fairly recent addition, and that's been the Apple TV. Now before this, I actually used Amazon's Fire TV, but being mostly in the Apple ecosystem until very recently, this has actually been really, really good. Now it's fast, which is the main thing that annoyed me with the Amazon Fire Sticks after a while. They just kind of slow down, but the integrations with Apple HomeKit have actually been really great here. Now I've been able to set this up with my Ring doorbell and also some other Ring cameras and other cameras I have around the house to pop up on the TV when the doorbell rings or when there's motion at certain places around the house. Now it pops up a video feed on my TV so we can see who it is, and it saves us having to pull out our phones from our pocket or just get up and answering the door like people used to do, I guess. Now, handy tip for those of you with young kids, we also have a camera on the landing upstairs so that if they get out of bed late at night, it also comes up on the TV. For us, that has actually been really handy for when they outgrow needing like a baby monitor, but you still want to make sure they're, actually going to bed at night. Now, this next one can be as simple or as complicated as you can make it, but it starts with just two parts. You've got a motion sensor and a light switch. Now, there are a ton of options you have here, from the likes of which everyone knows, like Philips Hue, to more left field options. But essentially, I have these set up all around the house, so when you walk into a room, the lights turn on. Now, if there's no movement in that room for also a set period of time, then the lights switch off. That's another handy tip for saving energy. But we've also used this with the kids, where they're about the age when they wake up far too early in the morning, can now help themselves to breakfast and, watch some TV downstairs before the rest of the house wakes up. So being able to trigger the lights to turn on automatically when someone walks down the stairs in the early hours of the morning just saves them disturbing us and waking us up to then turn the lights on, because they're small and they can't reach the light switch. And all of this is made possible by a number of ways, really. Now, firstly, lots of these services have their own apps, their own integrations. They'll integrate pretty well with both iPhone and Android devices. With iPhone, I have a few set shortcuts as well as a few widgets to get to some of these things, and I can also use voice to trigger certain things too. And on Android, I like being able to have some of these in the pull-down shortcuts at the top here so I can quickly open doors or trigger lights and things like that. But the one thing that holds all of this together, that keeps the wife happy with being able to control everything around the house, and also the way that I can have all of this tech in my house but still use either or whatever it is, and it's totally free, and that is a piece of software called Home Assistant. So with Home Assistant, once it's installed, you can hook up pretty much any smart device. And once it is hooked up, you can do pretty much anything, like stuff that goes far beyond Apple's own HomeKit or Google Home. And it's why I've never really bothered using those apps, because both of those apps keep you enclosed within their own devices. You can install Home Assistant on pretty much anything. There's a version that runs on this kind of tiny Raspberry Pi computer. I also have mine running on my Synology NAS behind me, and it's been pretty flawless. Like, it did take me a bit of time to get my head around some of the integrations, but there are a ton of forums and guides online to help you with that. But with Home Assistant, now I have a whole dashboard that shows me what's going on around with all the smart devices in my whole house, regardless of which ecosystem they're using. And because it talks to everything, I can do things like, when the alarm is armed, because we're not at home, then switch off all of the plugs around the home and turn off all the lights. And maybe even send us a message if any of the windows are left open. But the one thing I've done recently has been something that has been a personal victory for me, what with inflation and rising energy costs and all that kind of stuff. Now, a few years ago, I had a 6 kilowatt solar system fitted, along with a Tesla Powerwall battery backup. And whilst that's done a great job at reducing my energy bills, it's not the only thing. Now, using Home Assistant, I can detect when my electricity supplier is offering me cheaper electricity, and when there's a cheap slot, I can then switch a ton of devices on around the house. Now, the main thing here is being able to charge my home battery, my Tesla Powerwall, on electricity that's a quarter of the cost cheaper than charging in peak hours. But I can also create a domino effect around the house, like turn on the washing machine or the tumble dryer, or send notifications to our phones, to even switching on air conditioning units around the house to soak up the additional cheap electricity instead of paying for either expensive electricity or, when I'm full, paying and exporting that energy back to the grid. Now, that is admittedly a big upfront investment for the solar and battery storage, but many houses nowadays are being fitted with solar and battery storage as standard. And so automation such as this can have a dramatic effect on your home energy costs. Now it's going to be different from house to house as to how quickly this will pay for itself, but with prices just going up as fast as they are, that payback time is getting much, much faster. Now I am still interested to see what Apple and Google can bring to the home automation piece that seems to slowly be getting there. But as far as I'm concerned, unless you want to be tied to a specific brand and stuck paying premium Apple prices for their approved products, then Home Assistant actually provides a great option for you to still buy whatever devices you want and still have them working together. Until the next one.